Hello everyone, welcome to the course Disability Studies in India, Historical, Social and Cultural Perspectives. So in the week 4 we are talking about disability, intersectionality with ability and masculinity, right? And obviously we are looking at the very important role that is played by norms in constructing the idea of or discourse of ability and masculinity. So before I enter into this lecture, which is titled as Norms, Masculinity and Disability, a Critical Examination, right? So let me go back and discuss what we talked in the previous lecture. In the previous lecture, we were talking about that how masculinity makes us feel less human, right? How masculinity is as abstract concept aligns with ability and how ability imposes certain notions on masculinity which is strengthened by the ideology of ability. The nexus and the connection of masculinity with disability is that if you are not masculine, so either you are feminine, and obviously if you remember Aristotle has said that women are deformed men, right? Women are deformed men. So let's not go into the history talking about what Aristotle has said and for other people, but one thing is pretty clear that if you're not masculine, you are less human, you are not capable of getting respect and dignity in a life. That's how society expects. But masculinity has also a connection that keep making you feel less human. It constantly dehumanizes you. And problem with the disability is the way society imposes the problem is that since they are born with body marked with differences, they cannot behave as able body does. And if they do, if they sometimes transcend the limitations, I'm not talking about limitations according to my understanding, society thinks they have limitations. So if they start behaving the way society expects them to do so, if society asks them to do so, if they are reaching to the new heights decided by the society, they will fall under the category of a supercrip. And the problem would happen that now this is expectations from every other people, every other member of the society, that they should also behave, they should also follow this particular discipline, this particular method of working the way that so-called supercrip did. So supercrip basically is an idea which tries to endorse the ideology of ability, and obviously the connection of masculinity is that if you have ability, then only you can be masculine, right? And remember that I have been keep pitching and keep telling and keep talking about that as the society evolves, these notions also evolve, these notions also proceed, and then one become able, one become masculine, right? So look at the slide please. So the concept of norms, masculinity and ability, they interact in complex and deeply rooted ways, often reinforcing each other to produce pattern of social inclusion and exclusion. All right. So patterns of social inclusion and exclusion. Social norms dictate acceptable behavior, attitudes, physical attribute within a culture. They play a significant role in defining what is considered normal versus abnormal. Masculinity as a social construct is governed by norms that emphasize strength. Look at this, right? I have been talking about independence and physical prowess. So disability in fact complicate these ideas by challenging society's often narrow conception of a capable body. So we have to examine these intersection of norms, masculinity and disability, which open a window to understand how societal expectations are formed, maintained, particularly regarding gender roles, physicality and identity. So as I was reiterating, in fact I discussed at length in the previous lecture that intersectionality, these norms, not norms, ability, masculinity, these intersectionality makes us believe or gives a window to understand that why someone is behaving like this. Let's say for example, going to gym, right? If you go to gym, why do you go to gym? Right? One idea is that being physically fit, But again, what is the context or notion of being physically fit? It simply means that you want a particular shape, right, of your bodily shape. You want your muscles to grow in a particular way, right? You want your body to appear in a particular way, right? Let's say, for example, if belly is bulging out, so people suggest you go to gym. Let me ask you a question, why this is a problem, right? Belly bulging out. Medically, people may say that you may have obese, you may get sugar, so on and so forth. But I am not getting into this. But people generally, when they don't think that medically you are unfit, but they say your body is not looking fit, you are not looking good, you are not looking handsome. And then they suggest you to go to a gym. The idea of a gym, like these are cultural institutions, I would say, where it is expected to you remain able in a particular way. Your appearance, right? Your appearance should look masculine. Let's say, for example, I'm sure that you might have noticed so far the kind of a beard cut, the kind of clothes that they wear. It's more, in appearance, it looks more masculine, right? It aligns with masculinity, and that's why it's more appreciated, like tattooing the body, right? I'll talk more about it, like tattooing the body, like when you tattoo your body, what it does, and you display that, right? So, and sometime if you are studying, like in fact, I also do study like disability studies and popular culture. So, I just generally understand that what kind of tattooing people get, right? What is the nature of that tattooing? These are the difficult, interesting questions that we need to explore, but let me come back where I was trying to explain to you about disability and masculinity. So when we are entering into this disability and masculinity, and then we're talking about normal versus abnormal, right? And as I have constantly talking about that, the concept of abnormal, right? You cannot become normal. You cannot find the definition of normal until and unless you get the definition of abnormal, right? So these ideas like physical prowess, independence, not being vulnerable, these are the notions that go along with masculinity, right? So as a scholar, as a student of disability studies, our job is to look at the kind of expectations which one has to follow and maintain this, right? So norms are basically unspoken rules, right? It's by governing societies. Like what I mean by unspoken rules, right? What I mean by unspoken, like it's not like you can go and find this out. Like it's not that there is a book written and it's kept in Elmira and you open that and you read it and you get to know what the norms of society is, right? This is unspoken, which means that it is founded upon how we are going to perceive that, how we are going to look at it. So when you observe observable behavior, right, observable attitudes, define the kind of a norm you have, right? So that determines shaping our behavior, like how our behavior is shaped. Our behavior are generally shaped by norms. Like you are never told what to do, what not to do. You are told what to do, what not to do, but you never ask the question that why I'm supposed to do this, why I'm supposed to not to do this. So in childhood days, they just tell you, you be a good boy, don't be a bad boy, be a good girl, not be a bad girl, and that's how it keeps. It is perpetuated, right? That's how it is perpetuated. It keeps strengthening. It goes on. But no one finds this question that how to be called a good boy. What constitutes the idea of a good boy? So what constitutes is the norms, unwritten norms, right? I mean, suddenly someone started appreciating you, right? Someone started, oh, he's a nice boy. You don't know. You just followed your father's and mother's instructions, and then people are appreciating you. Then you feel, you internalize. That's what I was talking about. You internalize that behavior and you think, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is how I'm going to do, right? So it's constructed through norms, right? That's how it happens. So look at the slide, please. So norms are the unspoken rules shaping individual behavior and attitudes. through culturally embedded expectations, right? So masculinity is constructed through norms that emphasize specific attributes such as resilience, emotional restraints, physical robustness. These qualities are often portrayed as inherently male, creating rigid definitions of what constitute masculine. For example, men are often expected to embody strength physically and emotionally, maintaining control over their emotions while providing protection and stability within family, society, and law. That's why you have heard that men don't cry, right? What this means? This is nothing but simply what I'm explaining it here, that this is a kind of expectations from men that you should be emotionally stable, you are not supposed to cry, you should have physical and mental strength to do this. Oh, you can't do this? Be a man and do this, right? So this is a kind of expression. These are the cultural expression that you receive, and then it's kind of appreciative if you can do this, and if it is demeaning if you are not able to do this, right? So these are nothing but historically also enforced, right? It's constantly coming from the history, like past ages, and obviously as it keeps coming, it keeps generating new standards, new norms, new behavior expectations, right? So they keep changing, but they keep also strengthening certain things, right? So that's why you see that here why I was calling about that disabled people become less human. They become less human because for a particular reason they are less human, because they are not able to perform the way, like they are not men, right? They are not able to provide emotional and physical strength to the society. This is the very problematic notion that I am indulging in. But the point is that if you are not able to do this, right, this physical ability is like is again designed by certain atmospheres, certain sports, certain play, certain games. And that's why I have been talking about to you that it depends which community, which culture. Let's say, for example, let's take example of two different sports, right? Let's take example. And there is a one sport which is very popular in India is called cricket, and obviously now this is also getting currency and getting popular in India is also called football, right? Let's pick up two games. Now you see that the football is a game of 90 minutes and where the people are constantly running from one corner to the another corner, right? In cricket, you see that's not the case. Only few people are on the ground, they run, and sometimes they also take a lot of pause. They stay, right? They take rest, they can take rest. Obviously, they are alert. I'm not saying they're not alert, but you see that the physical strength that you notice in both the games are not the same, right? In the football, when they are performing, they are playing the game, and the cricket, when they're playing the game. So if you look at the physical strength of the players which are performing, which are playing football and which are playing cricket, the strength is not the same. They are very different. Now, if I ask you a question, right, who is more masculine, right? Both games are played by men, right? In fact, women are also playing, but let's not play the gender. But the point is something else. The point is that this game is also played by men. This game is also played by men. But now, if I ask a question, then you will say that the people who play cricket, they are less masculine. So what does that mean? So that's the point why I picked up these two important examples just to tell you is that this is important just to understand that how standards are set, right? How standards are set, who sets the standard. So if you set the standard by the keeping in the mind of the football player, then obviously most of the people will become less human, less masculine, and they will be called as having a feminine quality, right? Because they cannot run the way football players run for 90 minutes constantly, right? So the point what I'm talking about is that where does it come from? The standard, let's say for example, heights, right? The average height, who decides it, right? Where does it come from? So if you decide the average height from a one particular country or one particular community, then and you set it, that this is how we are going to measure the height of every other members of the world. right? And then what would happen, that maximum people will be called as a dwarf, right? DWARF. But you will see that this is not true. This is very bizarre. But that is what I'm trying to expose, the bizarreness. Right? That's what I'm trying to expose, the ideology of ability, which we have already done when we are doing the ideology of ability, the conflicting attitudes it has. It conceals itself, right? It doesn't allow us to unmask the paradox it has consisted. So our job is to question those paradoxes. Our job is to find out the loopholes in these, right? So which is why I was talking about that who will fall under the category of stigma. It depends how we are setting the standard, how we are setting the notions of ideology, of ability, right? So the masculinity is sometimes very much tied to the bodily concept, but it also creates a norm, right? That does not allow for deviation for physical ability, right? So, and then norms also. So it's not that they are dependent on each other, like obviously they are, like what I mean, norms, ability and masculinity, they all are dependent on each other, but at the same time what is happening with them is that they function differently, but at the same time together. Depends what context we are talking about, right? So in the case of disabled people with disabilities, you see that ability, masculinity, they all are working together, right? So disability, what it does, disability challenges these particular notions of masculinity. Look at the slide, please. So it challenges the social norms of masculinity by introducing variability in physical and mental capabilities and define the rigid standards that equate masculinity with bodily strength and independence. So a person with disability may be perceived as weak or incapable, which contradicts the societal expectations of masculinity. This creates a paradox. That's what I was talking about, right? It's a paradox. So who may face discrimination not only for their disability, but also their perceived failure to conform to the masculine ideals, all right? So this is what I was talking about, that what it does, it also defies this standard, and obviously we do not like these standards, right? And that's why in the next slide I'm talking about the double marginalization, right? Double marginalization, right? For example, a man who is using a wheelchair may face prejudice and assumptions about his capability in both professional and personal realms, impacting his sense of self-worth. This lack of representation of disabled masculinity in media and popular culture only compound this issue, as a few positive examples exist to counter negative stereotypes. So see, so the problem what I'm talking about is this, that even if, right, if there are certain prosthetics, there are wheelchairs, there are devices available which are there to strengthen the ideology of ability, which are there to give rigor to your body. So let's say, for example, if I have to give the example just to explain this to you. So person who is using a wheelchair, right, obviously he is now able to access the roads, he is able to access the ramps, so on and so forth, right? He is more so-called capable, but still the notion is not changed, right? Notion remains the same. We still believe that, oh, we give a pity look, but the question I have is something else to ask you, and this is more pertinent. For example, wheelchair is used to give accessibility to the body who are physically impaired, right? So those who do not have legs, they have a problem in accessing, and that is why they use the wheelchair. Okay, I am fine with this idea, right? Then there is another example, and then we have to compare and contrast. Another example is there is a Persian. There is a Persian who does not have, who has a low visual acuity, who is not able to see properly, who cannot see properly, right? And he uses spec to enhance his visual acuity, which means to see to certain length. I will not question the medical standard, but let's focus on these two things. Now, a person with a wheelchair and a person with a spec, are they treated the same in the society? But here, both are using technology, apparatus available to enhance so-called their biological bodily activity, right? But a person who uses wheelchair is often treated discriminated, right? He often discriminated in comparison with a person who uses spec. Now you see how do you think about it. Look at this, what I would say, the kind of ambivalent attitude that society has, right? How a person using wheelchair is discriminated, a person using spec doesn't get the same attention negatively, positively. I mean, they get positive attention, negative attention in case with person with a wheelchair. So this is what I was talking about, that here you do not question the self-worth of a person in the latter case. In the former case, you question the self-worth of a person, all right? So look at the slide, please. So the exclusion of disabled men from normative masculinity has kept historical roots. In many traditional societies, physical perfection and strength were viewed as essential to manhood, often linked to survival and social power. In ancient Greece, for example, physical fitness, bodily strength were celebrated as male virtues, while physical impairments were stigmatized. Disabled men were frequently seen as less capable and less valuable to society. So, similar perspective persisted in 19th, 20th century, where industrialization emphasized the value of able bodies. Now, you see, I'm talking about basically historical transition, right? What is happening in the ancient Greece, and now when we got industrialization, society changed. So, this historical context, right? You remember this historical context established a framework where physical ability becomes synonymous with male identity, marginalize those who do not fit this model, right? So, the psychological toll of navigating conflicting expectations of masculinity here, not there, right? This is what you can read and understand by yourself, can be substantial for men with disability. The pressure to conform to standard of masculinity often leads to feeling of inadequacy, low self-esteem, and several cases depression. Disabled people may struggle to form their identities within society. Simultaneously, values exclude them, right? So, expectation to be a provider or a protector can create a feeling of shame and helplessness in men who are physically unable to fulfill those roles, right? So, before I proceed further, I would like to just let you know the idea that handicap, right? What is the idea of handicap? Handicap simply means, as defined by the scholars, that they are not able to perform those roles, right? If a person is not able to perform culturally assigned roles, he will be treated as handicapped. Let's say, for example, just to resurf your memory, let's say, for example, a person who is impaired, and because of the impairment, he is not able to perform the role of a father, right? Because of the impairment, he is not able to perform the role of a father, then he will be treated as handicapped person, right? So, the point what I am talking about is here that, and then that gets associated with the notion of a shame, right? Same is the quality, same is a notion which emerges when you are not able to perform those social and cultural roles, right? So, this is what we see in the 19th and 20th century became more prominent. In fact, I would say that same operates in a way that it can make you feel less human and forces you to comply with the norms or social expectations. So, this is what we need to figure this out, that what is the role of the same is, right. So, look at the slide please. So, these men like these I have already talked about this. So, you can read it by yourself. So, here you see that when we come to this, the rise of social media, what it does, right, rise of social media, So rise of social media also offer disabled men to platform to represent themselves and their experiences, right, and normative masculinity. So representation is another way through which masculinity is constructed, right? I mean, there are multiple ways through which now a masculinity, ability, and norms are being operated, and they're also operating. It's not like norms they don't have agency; they have agency, but I'm saying that how they also operate and are operated. All right, so there are various ways. In fact, after the industrialization, with the emergence of popular media and n number of cultures and notions, what we see that they are constantly strengthened, right? They are constantly reinforced. They are shaped in a new ways. So to conclude my lecture, what I would like to suggest to you, and like in the end of this week in the module, our job is to examine disability along with the notion of ability and masculinity. Be our job is, which I will be keep talking about as my lecture proceeds, because norm is something which goes parallel with the discourse of disability. So how does norms operate? What are the cultural norms? What are the ways through which norms are strengthened or endorsed? All right. So these intersectionalities is important to know more about discrimination with people with disabilities, or to do a new kind of research in disability studies. So one more important point when you are aligning with it, that make sure that you are not leaving the gender outside, because when we are talking about masculinity, femininity is always there. I didn't touch it upon because one entire module is on feminism and disability. So there I will touch upon all these issues. But just to alert you that you should not think that I didn't touch upon it. I deliberately did not touch because I'm going to talk further. But women, like in fact Aristotle, I was talking about that, how disability and femininity go side by side. All right. So with this, I would like to end my lecture, and thank you so much for your patient listening. Thank you so much.